Senator Back. Order. Senator Back.
Thank you, Mr President. Mr President, my question is to the Minister representing the Minister for the Environment, Senator Cormann. I refer the Minister to the fact that the carbon tax has a huge negative impact on business and on jobs, while being of negligible, if any, benefit to the environment. Mr President, can the Minister inform the Senate why scrapping the carbon tax is particularly important to the constituents of my great state of Western Australia, and what support there is for scrapping the carbon tax from major figures in my Western Australian community?
No. Order. Order. When there's silence, I'll give the Minister the call. The Minister is entitled to be heard in silence. The Minister representing the Minister for the Environment, Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President, and I thank Senator Buck for that question. We on this side of the chamber, of course, have said consistently for a very long time that the carbon tax is a bad tax. It is bad for the economy, it is bad for jobs, and it does nothing to help reduce global greenhouse gas emissions. It just shifts them overseas. And we know, of course, that we've had some very high-level support from very senior people in the Labor Party over the years for that proposition. None less than former Prime Minister Julia Gillard, who in the shadow of the 2010 election said there will be no carbon tax under a government I lead. And Senator Lyon is inviting me to remind the chamber that in the lead up to the last election, Senator Pratt, she who cannot be found in this chamber all week, went to the last election in Western Australia and said that Kevin Rudd and Labor have removed the carbon tax. And then, of course, we've had Senator Bishop after the election who said the carbon tax is bad and Labor should drop it. Very sensible, Senator Bishop. Very sad that you are not recontesting the next election. But, of course, today, on the day when the Labor Party votes against our legislation to scrap the carbon tax, we have another Labor luminary that comes out into the public debate. There is a gentleman that might not be well known to the chamber, Joe Bullock. Joe Bullock. He is the Don Farrell of the Labor Party in Western Australia. This is what he has to say. Labor is scrapping the carbon tax in the West Australian today. Labor is scrapping the carbon tax. Now this is taking things to a new level. I mean, we used to have the Labor Party say one thing before the election and do the other straight after the election. Now we have the Labor Party say one thing before the election and do the exact opposite on the very same day that the statement is made. Well, I mean, the Labor Party is clearly totally confused. It is time that the good people on the right side of the Labor Party stand up for what is the national
Time has expired. Time. When there's silence, we will, on my right and my left, on both sides, silence. Senator Back.
Thank you, Mr President. Mr President, I ask the Minister, can he inform the Senate of any impediments to the government's plans to repeal the carbon tax?
The Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, the main impediment, of course, is the Australian Labor Party. And I said before that the carbon tax is bad for the economy and it is bad for jobs while doing nothing for the environment. But clearly the carbon tax is bad for the Australian Labor Party too. It does very strange things to the Labor Party. Generally, when we approach an election, it creates a bit of a virus, where the Labor Party sort of thinks, no, us too, we're against the carbon tax too. But to come out on the very day when the Labor Party votes in this chamber to block our attempts to free the Australian people from the impost of the carbon tax, to bring down the cost of living for families and pensioners, in particular in our home state of Western Australia, on the very same day that the Labor Party in this chamber here in Canberra votes to keep the carbon tax, their lead candidate, he who cannot be found anywhere in Western Australia, whereas Senator Pratt cannot be found anywhere here in the chamber, he comes out and says on the public record that
Time's
Labor
expired.
is scrapping the—
Resume your seats. Time has expired. On my left. On my right. On my right. Senator Back.
Thank you, Mr President. Mr President, I ask, can the Minister inform the Senate of the consequences for my home state of Western Australia from any delay in repealing the carbon tax?
The Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, a delay in scrapping the carbon tax means that electricity prices will be higher than they otherwise would be. It means the cost of living for families and pensioners will be higher than they otherwise would be. It means that the cost of doing business in Western Australia will be higher than it otherwise would be. And of course we know that Senators Bishop, that Senator Sterle, that Senator Pratt, that likely wannabe Senator Joe Bullock, they all want Labor to get rid of the carbon tax. Why doesn't Labor get out of the way and let us do the right thing in the national interest? We know that Bill Shorten privately and in his heart would like to scrap the carbon tax, but clearly he is not strong enough to stand up for the national interest. He's not strong enough to stare down the Greens and to stare down the people like Kim Carr and Senator Wong.
Order. You need to refer to people in both places correctly by their title. Order. On both sides. Order. Order. Order.
It is clear,
Senator Cormann.
It is clear that the leader of the opposition is not strong enough to stare down people like the member for Pyongyang, the senator for Victoria on the other side, and it is time that he remembers the national interest.
Time's expired. Senator Sterle.